started with a sort of mysterious notice this afternoon, a reference to security concerns that went out to all employees at the U.S. Department of Education. Quote, beginning today at 6 p.m., all Education Department offices will be closed for security reasons. Employees must vacate the building by that time. This notice also said all Education Department offices would be closed tomorrow and no employees would be allowed in. Now, this notice had no details about what these security reasons were, but it was pretty clear what was coming. After all, we've been through this a couple of times already now. It was just over a month ago when people who work at USAID got an email saying their office would be closed the next day and they shouldn't come to work. That was right before Trump set about completely dismantling that whole agency. Employees at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, same thing, sent a very similar note saying their office would be shut for the following week, just as the White House ordered the entire agency to stop all of its work. And sure enough, tonight, just after the 6 p.m. deadline for Education Department workers to vacate their offices because of some security concern, Trump Education Secretary, the billionaire pro wrestling executive Linda McMahon, announced that her department is cutting its workforce in half. They will begin firing more than 1,300 people from the Education Department tonight. And then, of course, she went straight to Fox News.
That was the president's mandate, this directive to me, clearly is to shut down the Department of Education, which we know we'll have to work with Congress, to get that accomplished. But what we did today was to take the first step of eliminating what I think is bureaucratic bloat. And that's not to say that a lot of the folks, it's a humanitarian thing, too. A lot of the folks that are there, they're out of a job. But we wanted to make sure that we kept all of the right people, the good people.
Looking at Trump's administration, it's like watching a real-life horror show that just keeps getting worse. I mean, have you seen what they're doing to the Department of Education? It's absolutely wild. They just kicked out 2,300 employees with barely any notice. Linda McMahon, the billionaire wrestling exec, is out there bragging about eliminating bureaucratic bloat while casually mentioning it's a humanitarian thing that people lost their jobs. What? These aren't just statistics. These are real Americans with families and bills to pay. If you're as outraged as I am about this blatant power grab, hit that like button and subscribe. Together we can stand up for our country's values against these attacks on our institutions.
Where was their criticism of our nation's failing test scores for the last several decades? The Department of Education was founded in the 1970s, and since then we have spent more than $3 trillion at this federal bureaucracy. What has been the return on that investment for the American taxpayer? Levels that are less than ideal, less than proficient. Our children's test scores are incredibly concerning when it comes to reading rates, literacy rates, math, and science test scores. The numbers prove that, and this president is finally taking much needed action to return education to where it belongs, and that's to educators closest to students in their classrooms in their respective states. We're going to have a great event here later at 4 o'clock. There will be students here, teachers here, parents here, educators, and of course governors from around the country who are very excited about taking on this responsibility to educate our nation's students.
Who's going to run federal student loans?
So the Department of Education will be much smaller than it is today. As you know, the president's executive order directed Linda McMahon to greatly minimize the agency. So when it comes to student loans and Pell Grants, those will still be run out of the Department of Education. But we don't need to be spending more than $3 trillion over the course of a few decades on a department that's clearly failing in its initial intention to educate our students.
The pattern is crystal clear, folks. Trump promised to be a dictator on day one, and he's delivering on that promise. First USAID, then the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, now the Department of Education. It's all part of the same playbook. Break the agencies, defy court orders, and consolidate power in the Oval Office. And who's sharing that power? Elon Musk. The same guy whose Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick is literally going on TV begging Americans to buy Teslas. Like, seriously? The conflicts of interest are so obvious it would be laughable if it weren't so terrifying. This isn't about improving education or government efficiency. It's about Trump and his billionaire buddies seizing control of our democratic institutions. You know, our founding fathers would be rolling in their graves seeing what's happening to the republic they created.
And a follow-up question. The Commerce Secretary yesterday said that Tesla stock is something that Americans should be buying. Is that the stance of the administration, that people should be investing in? Is that something that the Commerce Secretary should be recommending?
I think the Commerce Secretary was reiterating that the president supports an American-made company like Tesla, who produces a very good product for the American people, which was beloved by the American people, particularly Democrats, until Elon Musk decided to vote for Donald Trump. And now we've seen despicable and unacceptable violence taking place across our country at Tesla dealerships against workers, employees, and also innocent Americans who drive these vehicles. It's actually a scary time in our country because of this political violence from the left, and the White House and the president's entire administration condemn it wholeheartedly.
Caroline.
We'll see you guys at 4 o'clock.
Caroline.
Thank you. Thank you, Caroline.
And then there's Carolyn Leavitt, Trump's press secretary, who's absolutely terrible at her job. When questioned about these unconstitutional actions, she either gives non-answers or, get this, literally runs away from reporters. When asked about Lutnick promoting Tesla stock, hello ethics violation, she pivoted to some bizarre rant about political violence from the left against Tesla dealerships. What? Then she just bolted from the room before anyone could follow up. She knows she can't defend the indefensible. And that's the whole strategy. Break so many laws so quickly that we can't keep up, hoping we'll just get exhausted and give up. But we can't let that happen, you know? We have to keep calling this stuff out.
I, again, reiterate, I draw the line at arson. No one should be setting cars on fire. But I would argue, no, this is an important point. It's a free market point. But also, we talked about Dylan Mulvaney, a single trans influencer who was on a single can of beer for months. And that can of beer set the conservative movement on proverbial fire, rooting against at least half an American company, the Anheuser-Busch side of things. Kid Rock out there doing target practice with Budweiser cans, people vowing to decimate that brand. And Dylan Mulvaney has much less of an impact on people's lives than Elon Musk does. So is that okay? Or that was wrong too, and everyone wants to mea culpa over that? It was one can of beer with one transgender person on it.
No one was intimidated not to buy Bud Light.
Really? Then why did it drop?
No,
why did they lose market value?
Because it wasn't Dylan Mulvaney. It was the marketing person who denigrated the people who drank the beer.
Really?
The billionaire class, the corporate class, the private equity class, they are sick to death that they don't have their hands inside the Department of Education Treasury, that they can't get their hands on our schools like they've gotten their hands into our healthcare system and into every other aspect of our economy. What they want to do is to sell off our public schools to the highest bidder. Right? The voucher program that they're talking about, that they will be more easily able to implement if the Department of Education is gone, is really about just making it easier for the billionaire and corporate class to be able to buy up our schools so that they can make money off of it like they make money off of the Medicare program, like they make money off of so many other aspects of our government. So if the Department of Education closes, it's going to hurt millions of families in this country. It's just going to enable the theft of resources from regular families to pad the pockets of the billionaires. But it is also likely to result in you waking up one day and finding out that your local elementary school that your kids go to is owned by a private equity firm on the other side of the country and is being run for profit instead of being run for the education of.
The billionaire class is making their move, and it's not subtle. As Jessica Tarloff pointed out, they're sick to death that they don't have their hands inside the Department of Education. This isn't about improving education. It's about privatizing it so the wealthy can profit from our children's learning. Remember how conservatives boycotted Bud Light over a single transgender influencer on a beer can? But we're supposed to feel bad for poor little Elon Musk and his multi-billion-dollar company? Give me a break. This is the same Elon who's messing with Social Security, potentially affecting the $65 a day that vulnerable Americans depend on while he makes millions daily. The hypocrisy is just, I don't even have words for it. If you believe in fighting for regular Americans against billionaire takeovers, Drop a blue heart in the comments and let's build this community of resistance.
Additionally, on top of that ruling where USAID employees are reinstated by court order along with all those other agencies, a standalone blockbuster ruling from another federal judge today specifically ordering the Trump administration to reconstitute USAID and stop their efforts to shut it down, even to let them back into their building. The judge in this case said that the shutdown of USAID, quote, likely violated the United States Constitution in multiple ways.
But here's the good news. We can still fight back, and we're winning some battles. Courts are stepping in to stop this madness. A federal judge recently ruled that the USAID shutdown likely violated the United States Constitution in multiple ways and ordered employees reinstated. That's how our system of checks and balances is supposed to work. We need to remember that despite all the chaos, we still have agency in this fight. No dictator wannabe and his billionaire buddies get to just tear apart our government without resistance. The Constitution still matters. Democracy still matters. And as long as we keep showing up, speaking out, and supporting those who are fighting on the front lines, we can protect what makes America truly great. So yeah, I'll be here covering this stuff every day, and I hope you'll stick around too. Because honestly, our democracy depends on people paying attention right now.